What's going on, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about, these latest collected editions from Fantagraphics. So, let's take a look at these together. And welcome back, everybody. So, before getting started, I do want to give a huge thank you to the folks at Fantagraphics for sending us these latest books they have released over the last month or so. So we have quite a variety of books. As always, I will leave timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're curious about one. But out of this batch, my goodness, I think I've read one of the most powerful graphic novels I have this year so far. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be talking about Boris, the Potato Child. Let's kick it off with that. Boris, the Potato Child by Anne Simon. And this is translated from the French, I believe. And here's what the back of the book looks like. It is a hardcover, and this is the art on board. It has this aged look to it. I kind of dig this. Now, this is a book that I opened up, and I'm going to say something that I know on my channel I tell people, go into books not reading anything about it. Don't prep yourself up to read something. Just base it on the cover. And I do that a lot. And I remember saying, 90% of the time you come out, man, that was great. Completely unexpected. And sometimes you come out like, oh, man, that was bad. Well, with this, I had the I am confused reaction. Because I was really confused. There were things people were talking about in here that I had no idea what was going on. So here is the Tales of Barbaron. Here are your protagonists. Here's the king, the queen, who now goes by Airhead because that's what Boris calls her, the Barbaran army, and a couple of other side characters here. So, as it turns out, this is the third book of the Tales of Barbaron graphic novel series. The first and second book were released by Fantagraphics, and you can still purchase them. The Song of Aglia and Empress Sixtus, I think is how you pronounce that. But they're all based on real life events, real political people, real things that have shaped our world. So when I started reading this, not only was I confused, but I almost put it down as I didn't really care. But what really got me to keep reading was this artwork. I really enjoyed her art. It's so detailed and it's so well crafted that I just kept pushing myself to read it. It kind of reminded me, based on the cover of the Tim Burton character, the Melancholy of Oyster Boy, that little book. I thought it was going to be something cute like that because you never know what you're going to get when you're reading a Fantagraphics book or an independent title. But the more I kept reading it, especially when the French fry ladies were introduced, and you'll see what I mean when you see the sexy French fry warriors in here, I was like, okay, I could see where this is coming from. So then I read the back too, and it's a pure joy to read, surprisingly fun feminist satire. And I wasn't getting that at all because of the way that Boris treats his mother. Just making fun of her and changing her name to Airhead, sexy French fries. See what I mean? How could you stop reading there? So I did. I finished it off. And really, it does read like a satire, like a political satire. And I can also see why they mean by fun feminist satire through here, because there are things that change. She takes me by surprise, the queen, Aglia, who was, I guess, the main character in the first and second book. And in those books, something happened to her husband. So it's all explained through here. The more you read it, you could see where those particular books went, and it led to this. So it's all about an uprising, about Boris, who's a spoiled child. He meets one of the sexy French fry ladies I was talking about. Yeah, these ladies back here. He meets one in particular, Sabine, and she is all about revenge. So she's kind of using him to return what is right to this particular Kingdom. Really interested. It was a really interesting read, and for me, it's just weird enough to keep on reading, and the artwork is what really kept me glued to the book. But like I said, I almost gave up, so I find that pretty interesting. And it's okay to be lost on something like this because this is the third book of a trilogy. This book has 164 pages, and it retails for $29.99. Now, I say this is the third book of a trilogy, but it does say the Tales of Barbaron will continue. This is what the end pages look like, which I really like, because this introduces you to the characters here. Alright, let's keep going. Meläg, Town of Fables. This one, I had the exact opposite feelings immediately when I opened it up. This is written and drawn by Bongradila. And there is an introduction. Actually, there's a couple of introductions. There's a forward here about who Bongradila is, and then you have the introduction. So these actually kind of set the tone of the book and what kind of creator he is, where he has lived. He's from the Philippines. He's lived all over the world, and he lived in Florida. But, oh man, this book took me by surprise. Uncanny Omar Tuck Pretty One Day. Surprise. I could not put this down. It's easy to read, of course, because there's hardly any dialogue, as you'll see through here. There are a couple of stories that have some dialogue, or sometimes they're kind of, one of them in particular is a poem that was written by his father that he decided to draw. But they range anywhere from fantasy type of stories to heartbreaking stories. Oh, man. The one, what was it called? Dance? About the robot Peg. Oh, dude. I showed Melanie, my wife, that immediately and just blew me away. So let me just kind of give you an example, and you can read that one for yourself. You can read all these. They're all beautiful. I mean, you could tell how much love and care goes into all of his art in here. There's a lot of cross-hatching. Really reminds me, remember when I said Oyster Boy? Like Tim Burton's art style, which I guess he drew heavily from Edward Gorey. But this is kind of an example of what to expect in here. This is a soft cover, by the way. I didn't show the back of the book. I'm sorry about that. I love that this brown, thick paper that it's printed on. And the paper inside here is this thick matte paper. So this story right here, for example, is called Wonder. And then he puts the name there it's originally translated from. So it's just about a floating city, it looks like, that keeps getting higher and higher. And meeting air balloons, and it turns out that it was just the witch's grandchildren who had accidentally picked up her magic broom, and they made the town fly. And then at the end of each story, he kind of gives the idea behind the story. I like that a lot. I thought that's cool. A lot of the stories you're going to find in here are very similar to that. This one is Wish, I believe. This one's broken up into a couple of pieces. The artwork is easy to follow, beautiful, all in black and white, and it will just take you to a magical place. This book retails for $24.99 and has 128 pages. All the way in the back are acknowledgments and a little bit about the author right here, where he's lived. And then a little bit about the glossary, which is a nice touch because, like I said, there were some translations in there, what these stories were originally called. So, it is a beautiful book, and it should be in everybody's radar. Absolutely adored this one. Now, this is a big book compared to all the other books that were released around this time by Fantagraphics, as you could see at the beginning of this video. But just to kind of give you an idea, here it is compared to the size of a standard size trade paperback. So it is a lot bigger. Now, this is really cool because, here, let's look at it a little bit closer. One beautiful spring day, Jim Woodring, and of course the Fantagraphics logo down there at the bottom. And then the back of the book right here. What's really cool about this is this dust jacket. You gotta be really careful with it because it's this Delum dust jacket, or what we used to call back in the day tracing paper. So I would not recommend reading the book with the dust jacket on, but then again, I never recommend reading a graphic novel with dust jackets on. So here is what the art looks like on the board. It is a soft cover, and that was the dust jacket that we took off to kind of give you an idea of what kind of crazy art to expect in here. Here's what the front cover, spine, and back cover look like. They've taken away everything with the exception of the Fantagraphics logo. And there's Frank right there on the right-hand side. Okay, so let's crack this open and take a closer look at this book. Now let's crack it open. Again, it is a soft cover. One beautiful spring day. So I asked about this one because of that cover. I had no idea that this was the story of Frank, who's a character that Jim Woodring has been working on for the last 30 plus years. Now, we'll say there is a limited edition copy of this that is a hardcover. It's a little pricier. I think it's a signed copy, that's why. So there is absolutely no dialogue in here. And what this is a 400-page graphic novel that puts 3 previously released graphic novels together with 100 more pages in here to tie it in. And it's really cool because the story behind is, so according to Jim Woodring, the plots of the mysterious Frank stories he has been drawing since 1990 come to him as if dictated by an outside voice. Kind of reminds me of Robert E. Howard and Conan. He does not consider himself to be their author, but merely their servant. Damn, that is crazy. Okay, I like it. This otherworldly collaboration worked beautifully until 2012 when Woodring inexplicably interfered with the process by willfully making a drastic change to a storyline he had been given. The result was the cataclysmic story of the Congress of Animals. Which necessitated the redemptive magic of Fran, followed by the heartbreaking and open-ended Poochie Town. So this collects all 3 of them, and according to Jim Woodring, or his agent, or his publisher, this is the way that the voice told him to write the stories. So, all black and white, all about the character of Frank, no words at all. Beautiful storytelling, easy to follow. It is one crazy adventure. It reminds me, and it's supposed to, of course, remind you of that golden age of animation, or honestly, the black and white stuff like Buster Keaton's or Charlie Chaplin kind of stories. But really, like, the old Mickey Mouse black and white cartoons. It's creepy in a way, and it's almost like you're going on this trippy ride along with Frank because there's a lot of weird imagery through here. You can tell when he gets about 2/3 of the book, you're like, holy crap, this is getting strange, but I dig it. Now, I've not read the 3 stories that this collects in here, Fran or Poochie Town or the Congress of the Animals, but I have read his Portable Frank, and he actually did the Aliens Labyrinth story for Dark Horse. So I have read some of his stuff, and I have known the character of Frank. He's been around since the 90s, and if you've been collecting comics or you go to comic book shops, you've seen him around. But this collection here is so interesting, and it's an easy read. I've read it twice, and it's all detailed and beautiful. And like I said, this one retails for $50. So there is a $100 version. I think it's how much it is. That is a signed edition. But in here, you could see the freaking genius that is Woodring. Like, his panel layouts. His character that just goes on this dreamy, like, adventure. It's very bewitching. Kind of reminds you of imagery that you're going to see in Berserk. Yeah, I said it. Seriously, his universe follow their own rules. He is not following the rules of man. And this book ends right at 400 pages. So that is one beautiful spring day. Oh, and before I forget, of course, the binding. What am I doing? It is glued binding. And again, this is a soft cover. So, with a book 400 pages, this big, though, I haven't seen books like this have creases. Like, I had the Akira phone books like this, and they were okay. Uncle Scrooge, The Golden Nugget Boat by Carl Barks. continuing the library of Carl Barks. Man, we've got a lot of these. Now, what they started doing to make things easier for collectors, and I did do a video on this, by the way, on the Uncle Scrooge Library Collection by Carl Barks, or the Duck Comics by Carl Barks, rather, is in here. They will tell you what volume this is. So this is volume 26 of the Carl Barks, the complete Carl Barks Disney Library. So all the way in the back, they also have the other books that are available. So we're missing volumes 1 through 4, and we're at volume 26. Interesting that they called it this and not the Midas Touch, because this is a very sought after book. This is one that I know for years people have been wanting, and I've not read any of these until I got it in here this couple of weeks ago. Oh man, this is the introduction of Magic of the Spell, but we'll get there here in a little bit. Of course, you have other adventures. The ones that, of course, stand out are the ones with the nephews and Donald. There's a Shrink Ray issue here that I love, where Huey, Donald, and Scrooge get shrunken and they have to escape, and they're fighting the Beagle Boys. But what I found interesting, as I always do when looking at these books, is the history behind everything, and you get to learn so much about the stories behind the stories because of all these comic historians here that are actually more like duck historians that talk about the stories behind the stories. And yeah, the whole creation of Magic of the Spell was because pretty much Carl Barks was just tired of using the Beagle Boys and Flitheart, so it was time to introduce a kind of a sexy witch, right? Because we've seen the witches before, like the way he drew them. Now, there is one thing that I noticed when reading this. This story right here, this is a mythological story right here. It's actually called Mythic Mystery. His art just doesn't seem the same. Even his panel layouts doesn't seem as detailed. Seems kind of rushed. But the thing that I noticed, I don't know if it's just my copy or not, is in this particular page, page 93, it seems like the black tones right here, the blank ink from the printer, didn't print on the lower part of the bottom two panels. So I don't know if that was fixed. I don't know if that's every copy. So just in case, maybe keep an eye out. Not a big deal. You know, I mean, not to me, but I can see people saying that that's a big deal. But let's get to the story right here. The Midas Touch. The one that introduced us to Magic of the Spell. Man, do I love this character. And every time I'm sorry to Don Rosa, and I'm sorry to Duck Enthusiast, and I'm sorry to Carl Barks, who's been gone for a while, but every time I read her voice, I have to read it like the cartoon, just because she had such a unique voice. So this is the story. I don't even know how Scrooge, who's like one of the smartest guys, well, of course he's greedy, so pretty much a sorceress, or this lady that claims to be a sorceress, steps into his office, and Donald's like, should you trust this woman? And she wants to make a deal. She wants to make an amulet that will give her power. In order to get this amulet, she has to have a coin which has been touched by the very rich men, the most richest men in Duckburg. So that's why she wants a specific coin from him. And of course, he accidentally sells her the number one dime, his oldest dime. And that's how the story goes from here. She gives him $1 for a dime, and Scrooge, being the greedy guy that he is, he's like, sure, take it, haha, sucker. And then realizes, I accidentally sold her my old number one. I love it. Then he goes chasing after her, and then pretty much that's what it is. The story is trying to get it back, and then trying to keep her from stealing it. So it's really cool to see her first appearance. Oh, I can't wait for future volumes of this. And just a nice addition to the library. I know we only get 2 a year, and it seems like forever, but every time these show up, it is a joy. We have restored and new colors in each of these chapters. I had some of these comics. I bought them at yard sales because I became a Duck fan later on in my life. I had already watched DuckTales, and it wasn't until I was working at a comic book store in high school that I got into Duck comics. But I'm sure glad I did. Now, as I mentioned, all the way in the back is where you're going to find the glossary, the story notes, which I 100% think everybody should read. Of course, read the stories first if you're enjoying them. To read the behind the scenes of how Carl Barks worked. Freaking awesome additions. And then there's actual... Yes! I just saw that they're releasing a diamond edition of Carl Barks stories. So I think it's like the best of Carl Barks. I hope it's as big as that. I love that. And then, of course, The Life Among the Ducks here, which is printed in all of the books. So here we have some contributors, of course, the people that wrote those articles there, where the Duck stories first appeared in chronological order, and then the complete library of the Disney books. And then we have Disney Masters and Disney Afternoon Adventures. They are really cranking these out. This book has 208 pages, retails for $35. And, of course, if you're already getting Duck comics, you're going to get this, or you already have it. Sewn binding, and that's what the eye looks like. But it's finally nice to see some future Scrooge adventures in this format. The End. This is the revised and expanded hardcover by Anders Nielsen. Here you have the title, the creator, and the logo, and then a little bit about the story, and some of the artwork that you're going to find in here. I love the way this book is printed. It kind of reminds me of the old textbooks. This one retails for $24.99, and the paper stock in this is this matte paper. All right. This is one of the most powerful reads I've had this year, or in a long time, and it got to me really bad. Like, it moved me. So, one of my most anticipated books of the year, I talked about it last year, and I cannot wait to read it. It has been previously released, I believe, twice. But this is the assembled work from Anders' notes, his notes and his sketchbook over the course of the year that followed the death of his fiancée, Cheryl Weaver, who he talks about here a lot. And it's just a collection of short strips, notes. Sometimes there's photos in here just about the loss of someone and dealing with it and the transformation you make yourself. And of course, looking back at this later on as you've moved on with life, man, there are a lot of powerful moments in here. There's a lot of powerful scripts for anybody that has lost someone they love and just going through the motions, and that you're not alone, because you do feel alone at those moments. You do feel like the whole world is ending and no one knows what it feels like. You know, people are asking how you are. I love this. I love the metaphysical visit to those days. Like, it's crazy to think about that this person was in his life and then one day was gone. He talks about the idea of her being gone was not as difficult as the idea of her existing somewhere. Like, he thought that she was just a phone call away, that laying in bed, that she would come back one day instead of being gone. And of course, he talks about what led to her death. It is a powerful book. There are symbols like this all over the book. Beautiful. 100% recommend reading it to anybody. Even if you haven't lost someone in your life, to just appreciate the people that you have in life. Oh my gosh. There's also about 20 or so pages of Cheryl Weaver's work towards the end of this, but this one got me. I know he also wrote a book about the loss of Cheryl that's a little more personal, but this, as a collected editions channel, as a guy that's been reading comics for 35 plus years, man, this is one of the most powerful reads I've had. Beautiful book. And this is the kind of artwork you're going to see in here. Just powerful messages like this. And I get it, you know, it's not for everybody. It's not X-Men, it's not Superman or Batman. But sometimes we need this in our lives. Sometimes we need them in any medium we can get it. So this is The End, revised and expanded. Let me look at the back here. And this is some of Cheryl's photos. There's a lot of notes towards the back here. And he talks about why he decided to go back and revisit this book with additions, how he sees his life now, and how he's moved on, but there's still this part of him that belongs to Cheryl. A 150 pages, retailing for $24.99. It is sewn binding. Not much of an eye, but you don't need one. And that is the end. You may see this in my top 10 this year, probably. Yeah, for sure. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of these particular titles. Let me know in the comments down below if you have been picking up these Duck comics in this format by Carl Barks, if you read the original Anders Nielsen The End, and if you're picking up this particular revised and expanded edition. And if you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. More importantly, everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.